Hello, welcome to Hobby Chat with Adam's Hobby Stuff, and a few things to chat about today. First, I'm going to show off my 2000 point Nurgle Knight army, which you can see on the table in front of me. I've talked about this on the channel a number of times, never shown it in kind of one go. This isn't all the knights I have, this is just what I took to a recent tournament that I've spoken about on the channel a few times. So we'll talk about that. Just before we do though, I've recently clicked over the 1,000 subscriber mark, so thank you to everyone that's subscribed to the channel, watches the videos, sees what I do, and obviously you must semi-enjoy it. Look, it is really appreciated, and it's amazing to think there's that many people out there that kind of like what I do. So hopefully I can keep entertaining you, and you keep following and like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of YouTube jazz we always talk about. So with that over with, carry on talking about the army. So I've mentioned on the channel that I was going to a 2,000 point tournament, my first 40k tournament in about 15 years. So I'll give you a bit of feedback on my experiences, what I felt went well, and a little couple of hints and tips if you're thinking about going to your first tournament in years. So the last video you've seen these guys in was when I painted up the War Dogs. You'll notice from that actually I've changed the top weapons. I did mention that in the video to heavy stubbers instead of the melter guns that were there. And in that last video I talked about how I'd prepped 5 armigers, but different ones. I'd actually prepped 3 of the Helverin style ones, when they're all called War Dogs obviously for Nurgle. I'd prepped 3 of these and 2 of those, and when the points change happened for the Nachtmund expansion, I'd gone over points and then frantically had to paint up an extra of the chain glaive and thermal spear ones. So I suppose that's point 1 really if you go into a tournament. Know your army, and I mean that in a number of ways. So first of all, check your list, check your points, make sure that what you're thinking you can take, because obviously in a tournament you can't go over points. Now, when I'm playing with a mate, going 15 points over because I want to slide some melter guns on the top of them and things wouldn't be an issue, but obviously in a tournament it quite seriously is, and you don't want to start off by, breaking rules. Linking to the know your army point, let's talk about the first game I had. So the first game I had against a snakebite beast snagger orcs, whatever they're called. Now, I've never played those before, so we'll touch on that in a second. But also, I made a couple of catastrophic mistakes with my own army. So you'll see this knight here. We'll just put him in, draw some of those out of the way. So he's obviously a very, very close combat focused knight. So I've got my little army list I was using throughout the tournament. So I just printed it off from Battlescribe, and I just found that a little bit easier for remembering what the rules are and those kind of things. You've seen a previous video I've done, hopefully, that I spoke about how confusing and complicated the rules are getting, and some of it's about keeping those in your head. So he's a Knight Rampager. Now, in my practice games that I had with a few friends, I was finding I was forgetting quite a lot about the stratagems and things, and you'd forget to do it. So what I ended up doing was using the stratagem where an extra 2 models can take a Warlord trait, and an extra 2 models can take a relic. So this is not my Warlord, but he's equipped with the relic Gauntlet of Ascension. That's what we're looking for. So he's equipped with the relic of Gauntlet of Ascension, and he's got a Warlord trait. Vow of Carnage, I will remember. So I equipped with those mainly so that I didn't forget things and made use of those stratagems. So I went into the game only having 2 CP left, and that was specifically so that that guy could use one of the stratagems, which we'll dig out in the book and show you the name. So I wanted him to be able to use full tilt. So that's one of the stratagems in the book. Start your charge phase, select 1 knight, model for your army. That model can charge even if it advances that turn. Okay, so in the first game I came up against, I got first turn against the snakebite. Got my army into quite a nice position, and I ran him forward and completely forgot to charge him. So I was 7 inches away from a kill rig and didn't charge because I'd advanced, and then in discussion chatting to my opponent, it was like, oh, I've advanced, I can't charge. Completely forgot why I'd saved the 2 CP, and then almost cursed myself for advancing him into a stupid position. And effectively that wasn't quite what lost me the game, but that was one of the things that really lost me the game, because then he got charged, they rolled over me, and lots of bad things happened. Dice rolls were also horrendous in that game. This guy, which is again probably not the best way to equip a knight, really, fist and melter, because he's meant to be one that stands back and kind of there. So really I would probably in future equip 2 shooting weapons and hang him back, because I picked the Warlord trait where he can grab the objective no matter what, and really to advance forward probably quite foolish. But his dice rolls with this thing were appalling in the first game. I literally did not cause a single point of damage, and he survived right up till turn 5. So, you know, dice rolls are dice rolls. You can't equate for that. But a catastrophic error in how I positioned him really was not good. So, know your army. And I mean know your own army. Know your strategy. Have it practiced. I'd sort of written the strategy down and then completely forgot. Now, the positive thing is I didn't make that mistake again. So I remembered. And actually, funny enough, my third game was against another orc army, and this boy ripped through everything, not quite everything, but, you know, tore apart a couple of the kill rig style vehicles himself, piled in, did really well because I didn't forget again. And I won my third game in spectacular fashion compared to the first game, which was a spectacular loss. So knowing your army is absolutely critical. Second point, linking to that, obviously, I came up against a kill rig and all the beast snagger stuff, and I had never once played against them, and also never ever read the rules for them or watched a video on them or anything like that. So really, know the meta. And I say know the meta because after the first round, on the top 3 tables of the tournament, there were 3 Beast Snagger armies and 3 Custodes armies on those top 3 tables. So know the meta. The 3 Beast Snagger armies were very, very similar. Same thing with the Custodes. So it's definitely worth researching the meta, because my third game against Orcs definitely went a lot better than my first. And actually, every time from now on that I play Beast Snaggers, I'm going to know what they do a little bit, and I didn't know that going into the game. So this guy was my warlord in the tournament, so he performed actually relatively well, nicely demonic. He did become a bit of a bullet magnet, because the rules of the tournament were not that you had to paint or anything, you got the extra points regardless, and it was more about a tournament about getting people back into the gaming system. So they didn't want to discourage people not coming because stuff wasn't painted. Now, because he was really nicely converted and painted, though, he almost turns into a bullet magnet, especially with him being warlord. Now, I tried to keep him more survivable with a couple of the traits and things I did. So I gave him the Veil of Medrungard, which gives him a 4+ invulnerable, which was actually pretty useful. That really was good. And I also gave him the Warp Haunted Hull. So you can ignore on a 5 or a 6 the injuries on the psychic phase, in case, I figured I'd come and get some psychers, Eldar's out, that kind of thing. So I thought that might be something that might happen. So he was fairly survivable. He was quite useful. Enjoyed, the kind of game. The next thing that happened while I was playing with these guys was, although now your war dogs have got the objective secured ability, which is useful, I kind of kept forgetting about objectives. Now, mainly because I'd never played with the new expansion book before. I'd always played with the old missions. So I went into the tournament and I bought the Nactmund pack a few days before, and I read through them, but the practice games I had prior to the tournament were using old objectives and missions, and I thought, well, it's not much of a difference, is it? And these are a couple of missions I played. But I chose to pick my secondary objectives from this book because they're cool. They're quite interesting. You've got a whole different set of secondary objectives. Problem being is, because I've never played with them before necessarily, I wasn't quite using the army right to grab those objectives. Now, did it cost me the game? Would grabbing objectives in the first game meant I'd have won? Probably not. And in the last game, by that point, you played a couple of games, and I was remembering it by then, and my third game of the day was, a complete difference to the first one. So, knowing the missions, absolutely, you've got to get these things, and you've got to really read and understand the missions, because, as I learned very quickly in a tournament, the missions and your objectives are more important than killing stuff in 9th edition, which I'm sure you all know anyway. Now, that being said, so those 3 things I've talked about: knowing your army, so knowing what you guys do, knowing what your stratagems and CPs do, and sort of practicing, critical. Knowing the meta, absolutely. You need to know what the meta armies are, because you're going to face one of them probably. Now, watch YouTube videos. It's not going to be something I ever do, talking through the meta and explaining it, because I'm not good enough, is the main gist of it. But you do need to know that. Have an idea of what you're going to face and what it does. And thirdly, he said, know the missions. So that really is all you're going to do. And generally, if you do those 3 things, you'll probably do fairly well, assuming you've assembled an army that synergizes quite well together. And actually, Knight armies are ideal for that because not many model counts, not much to synergize, you don't need to remember too many linking rules, so fairly simple. And part of the reason actually I took my Knights rather than taking my Death Guard infantry army because I was not getting the rules in my head properly. So those three things are, kind of, when you're there, those three things are key. But the fourth one, I think this doesn't get talked about a lot, is enjoy the game, even when you're losing. So the first game where I was getting panel beaten left, right and centre, do you know what? I was still enjoying myself. I was still having banter with my opponent, still joining in. And even he said afterwards, he went, not many people laugh and enjoy a game like that. And watching some of the games going on, especially when you got to game 2 and 3 and you're watching the top tables, the person losing looked miserable. If I'm entirely honest, the person winning didn't look much happier because it was far too tense. So my biggest point of the thing is, these are toy soldiers. Try and enjoy your game. Because then, even if you've got those first three things wrong, like I very much did in my first game, you will still enjoy it. And that's kind of what it's here for. So that's really my kind of thoughts. Showcase my 2,000 point army. Thoughts on my first 40k tournament in a few years. Look, not gospel by any means. I'm not a tournament expert anymore. I used to go to tournaments regularly all the time. Again, first one in 15 years, but I did enjoy it. More than likely going to go to another one, and I'm going to try and learn the rules for one of my foot armies and try and get a little bit more experience with that. So that's that. Now, what I always do at this point is clear the models away, and I'll do a what I spent my hobby money on this week. Now, it has been a couple of weeks since I've done a hobby chat video. It's been very, very busy kind of at work. And when you get home and you've got limited time, I am always going to prioritise building and painting models over standing and waffling on YouTube, because this is, I do this to track my hobby progress, not really as a kind of talky videos, but I quite enjoy doing these talky ones when I'm talking about figures. So let's show you what I bought this week. So I'll actually start with the last thing I recently bought, and that is this, issue 27 of Imperium magazine. I popped into W.H. Smith, sort of newsagents, £9, with a very cool hemotrope reactor on. Now, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this thing, but £9 for something that is worth way more than £9, and I do like my scenery and I like my kit bashing, so this might turn up in Necromunda because I'm still on a very much of a Necromunda trip. I'm flicking between Necromunda and Death Guard. Might turn up in there, or I might find another use for it. So that was my most recent purchase. Now, going back a bit, back to the tournament days when I attended the 2,000 point tournament day, sounds like years ago, it wasn't. I put myself up an Onager Doomcrawler. Now, I'm not doing a Mechanicus army. I'm going to do some sort of wacky knight conversion with multi-legs, and then the top part is going to be used for a Necromunda Ash Waste project I've got kind of in the back of my mind. So again, watch out for that one. And then I picked up one of the big boys, a Knight Valiant. A couple of reasons. Obviously, I'm doing a Nurgle Knight army, and I've sort of finished it, but I kind of want to do some more. So I decided I don't have this style of knight for my Nurgle, so I'm going to do it. Went for the Valiant, not so much because I want to use this weapon fit. I kind of do, but it'll look cool. But I'm going to actually not use this arm. I'm going to do something weird and Nurgly tentacly, and then I'm going to use this again for a Necromunda Ash Waste kind of worm hunting kind of thing that I've got in mind, so that could be kind of cool as well. I'm quite looking forward to doing this one when I get around to it. And still on the Nurgle topic, if you've watched and checked my Instagram out, you'll see that I'm making a version of a Space Marine Falchion, and I'm using the miasma malignifier chimney as barrels. Now, originally I was just going to use one and cast the other one up, but I decided against it, bought another malignifier, and I'm using 2 official barrels for it. So again, I'm going to have to find something interesting to do with all these other parts afterwards. So that's kind of what I spent my hobby money on. I hope you liked my ramble today, my bit of waffle about my knights. Still like them, lovely army, still got a lot more to do. I've mentioned a few times, building all this up because we're doing a 10,000 point game where I'm taking a 10,000 point Nurgle army against a Warlord Titan. So very much looking forward to that. And as I get closer to that magic 10,000 point number, I'm sure I'll do some more army showcases and show the finished things as we're going. So if you'd like that kind of thing, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And yeah, I'll see you on another video.